Hello and welcome to the Mission City podcast. Last week, we started a series on relationships. It's all about the seasons of singleness, dating, and marriage. If you missed that episode, pause this now, go watch that, and come back because today we are talking about the season of dating. There are so many questions that arise in the season of dating. What are our priorities? What are we looking for? What's the point? Our campus pastors Dave Cash and Chuck Foster are here to share their experiences and advice for those that are dating. Let's go ahead and get started.
Good morning, Chuck. Good morning, Benny. How you guys doing today?
Dave, what's happening, my man?
Doing well.
Is it a great just week for Texas baseball?
Oh, heck yeah. Well,
it's a little greater for one than the other. It's probably going to be great for both.
This is going to be delayed gratitude. I'm hoping. We're throwing Jose or Kurt or Keedy, something like that.
He's your guy. Folks, if you don't know, we're talking about
baseball,
Astros and Rangers. I said Astros first because I'm actually a Ranger fan and Chuck is an Astros fan.
You are.
And so
that will be. I almost wish that the Astros were still in the National League.
I don't almost wish. I wish it
because if it was a World Series, the world might explode.
It might. I remember thinking if the Texans and Cowboys,
like nobody would watch, but people in Texas.
Well, that's all you need.
That's only
that's all I care about.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters, right?
But it's been fun. It's been a fun run for the Texas Rangers with the new manager and the things that they got going on. And
I wasn't sure. There was a time in the last week that I wasn't sure the Rangers or the Astros, which one of them was not going to even make the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, the Rangers were fading fast.
Gotta have faith.
Yeah. Yeah, but they pulled it out.
This would be the time to go to George Michael's playing, doing the. You're not an '80s guy.
Please no, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that.
George who?
Yeah, that would not be good.
Anyway, but it was good getting back together last week. We were on a little bit of hiatus, and we thought we got canceled, but here we are again. Just when you think.
We're back.
We're back. So last week we started talking about doing this series and single and dating and marriage and
it's called relationships.
Is that what it's called? All right. So I missed that page, but last week we talked about that time of waiting for the person that God has you, how to take advantage of that really, so that you would be prepared for when God does bring that person.
Biblical singleness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Say that.
And so I thought I enjoyed talking about that last week, even though it's been a long time since I've been single.
I had no clue what I was talking about. Really, I mean, it's been so long since.
That's going to make everybody want to listen to your podcast. I don't know what I'm talking about. So tune in.
Tune in. Yeah.
Oh no. It'll be entertaining anyway.
I think dating, however, because we both, even though we're married, dating is a thing that still you should do when you're married. You should date your wife.
And you don't have to. Sometimes our date is Friday night HEB. I mean, like getting the groceries.
You are a cheap date.
It's just not if you've looked at the price of groceries. That's probably the most expensive date we've had in I don't know how long, brother.
No kidding. Yeah.
But I'm serious. I mean, it's our time that we got alone. Going up and down the aisles and everything. And I remember. And I'll mention this during the marriage thing if I could remember, but I'll say to my wife sometimes, I'll go, you run to aisles, blah, blah. You grab the bread and the tortillas because they're right there and the barbecue sauce is down there. And I'll run to the other end of such and such so we can get in and get out. And she was like, well, I thought this was a date that we could just get everything together. And I was like, oh yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. The women are often good at reminding us of what we're supposed to do.
Very lovingly, the frying pan doesn't hurt after 22 years of marriage, but but yeah, absolutely. Dating is imperative for marriage. We'll talk more about that later on, but today that's what we're going to talk about is when you are dating.
Do you remember the last time you went on a date that was not in your marriage? What was that like? What'd you do?
With my wife?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was out to eat because we like to eat. Because some people, eat to live. We
live to
eat. So I'm sure it was out to eat. I remember.
You remember first date?
I do remember the first date. First date. Let's tell our first date stories.
Yeah.
My first date with Ashley, we met at Prestonwood. And I
Went to
was
church,
serving on staff there. We met through the singles ministry and stuff. And I was praying. God was moving in my heart. I knew I was going to serve in something in ministry. And so I had been talking to FCA, where your daughter works, and I was talking to Campus Crusade, and I was also talking to Presswood about doing an internship with Matt Serber. And so that's where we felt God leading us. But anyway, on our first date, I found out she loves seafood. And she had mentioned something about the Audi A6 being her favorite car. And my boss at the time, when I was working in sales and marketing for an insurance company, guess what kind of car he had? An Audi A6. And so I took her out on it. She knew I didn't drive an Audi A6. I drove a truck. But anyway, and I didn't pick her up on a motorcycle or anything. But anyway, the Audi A6, I took her there, and then I took her to Papados because I don't like seafood. But they have a steak. They have one steak on the menu. And so I took her to Papados because that was her favorite place. And that was our first date. And then I lived in this nice apartment in North Plano, and it had sort of like a place where you could walk around, like a built-in pond that was, pretty nice size with kind of beachy kind of a deal around it. And so we just pond. Well, we had a pool and a pond. Pond would be good for you.
If you understand where that's coming from, you're one of our guys. You're old.
So we just walked around that, and we just talked, and we actually got into the Word together and had a prayer time. Yeah, we did. I mean, we met at church, and I'm an all or nothing guy. When it was all about Jesus, and it still is, thankfully, And so that's what we did on our first date. What'd you and Cheryl do?
Well, Cheryl and I've known each other for a long time. So if you say first date, it would have to be when we were like 15. But that we're going to skip that because that was high school, and
you were pulling her pigtails.
That was stupid. So our first real date after that sort of really was more like a courtship thing. Cheryl and I, and we came back together. We had a 5-year reunion. 5-year reunion. Why would we have? It was a mixer. That's the term they use, And so we got to hang out. I said, man, she's growing up. She's pretty. And she was pretty in high school, but she was really pretty in college. And so we went to Spaghetti Warehouse. I thought that was high end, by the way, Spaghetti Warehouse back then. Do they even exist anymore?
I have no idea.
They had didn't they have like the 100-layer lasagna or
I don't know
10 layers something?
I don't know.
But the layers were like this.
100 layers.
I was so disappointed. I was like, I'm going to not be able to see my date over here.
Yeah. So we went Spaghetti Warehouse, and we were eating and just talking, and they gave free like soft serve ice cream, and so I went and got us an ice cream, and so I just tested her a little bit, and I took my cone, and I went, this thing smells funny. She goes, really? It smells funny. Here, smell it. And so she went to smell it, and I went, stuck it in her nose. And I thought, if she can survive that, if she can survive my sense of humor, then we're good.
That's it.
And she didn't get up and leave, and so I said, well, she might be somebody that I might want to date some more.
Them girls in Deer Park must be desperate.
She tough. Or tough. Well, she got me back at our wedding. She shoved a cake up my nose. That was a lot of fun. I was digging that out a whole week in Cancun, I think. But that was our first date. It was a great time. But I think part of why dating is an important topic is because people get dating wrong. Mm-hmm. I think so many people treat dating sort of like, I'm looking for someone. I'm trying to find the one. And when really it should be about trying to be the one. Mm. I want to make myself the one that would be dateable instead of being always out there trying to find. It's almost like fishing, and so I think that's where people get dating wrong is they try to treat dating as like almost like a hunting expedition, and that's not the way it works.
Well, and I think absolutely you you want to be prepared so that you lead as we're men, that you need to be somebody, and it's not just, like you said, going from one to another. You need to think about, this is the person that God had brought. But I think the way we also prepare ourselves is to look what's modeled in Scripture. In Proverbs 31, is that somebody I see becoming that, or somebody that's resisting that? Is it, when I say expectations, I don't mean looks or the kind of job they have or any of those things. What I mean by saying expectations is saying, is this somebody that we're going to raise children together to know Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior? Is this somebody that's going to allow me to lead as long as I'm being a godly husband and I'm loving her first and I'm loving her as Christ loved the church? And if I'm doing those things, is she going to be somebody that follows that? And we talked about being unequally yoked last week. It's not just about, a saved person marrying a lost person. It's also about, a growing Christian marrying a Christian who doesn't want to grow. Well, I bought the fire insurance and I'm not all in. As long as we go on Sunday, I'm good for an hour a week. If you want to do Wednesday, we can do that every now and then. But if it's nice out, I want to go to the lake. That's not what I'm looking for. I wanted somebody that knew that the first fruits was going to go to the church as far as tithing. I wanted them to know that my first time was going to be with the Lord, that I would be better if they allow me to love Jesus first and not be expected to be put above my relationship with Jesus Christ. It would be somebody that would go, wow, this guy loves Jesus. And that was Ashley. God had laid somebody that wanted to lead and be a biblical example to others. She didn't really want to marry a pastor or a youth minister at the time or anything, or she wasn't thinking about that.
Yeah.
She just wanted somebody that was going to take her to church, not just go to church with her, and not just somebody that would just take their kids to church. It's not enough it's important to take your kids to church, obviously, and you raise your kids in church, but it's more important to raise them in Christ. And so that's where a lot of people look at church as sort of like, that's number 4 on the list. As long as the income's there, as long as the looks are there, as long as the background is there, as long as these things, and then, I can handle a little of that. That's not going to last forever. You're going to be sitting in the pastor's office about 6 months in, probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dating is hard, and so I think a lot of times when we start to find someone that we would like to date, or I think it's important to have, and I think this sort of gets into what the difference is between dating and courtship, right? Dating is a recreational thing, right? A lot of people look at dating as that's my serious thing, but really, if you're truly pursuing someone that you see as, I think this is a person that I might want to spend the rest of my life with, it becomes a time period of seeking after that person in a biblical way. Is this, do our you talked about it, do our values, do our desires for following Christ align? One of the things that Cheryl and I early on, when we started liking each other a lot, was like, well, what's important to you? If these things didn't line up, then we probably just need to be friends and say goodbye and start and move on, because we didn't want it to become a recreational thing. Right. If it's recreational, how you're out with a bunch of friends and you like this person, well, that's fine. And I think recreational dating is okay at a certain age, around other people, protecting yourself. I think it's wise to protect yourself in those moments. But when you really start to identify the one, it becomes courtship, and then you have to make sure that your values align. Are you guys, as you put it earlier, which I think is the greatest way to say it, are you equally yoked? Yeah. Do you believe the same things? I remember in high school, there was a girl that I really, really liked, and we started talking and like we were going to date, and she was of a
Did you have somebody pass her a note?
Huh?
Did you have somebody
Oh
pass
yeah,
her a note in
absolutely.
gym class or
And
something?
I even folded it really.
They don't
really
even do
cool.
that anymore. I said that the other day, and they were all looking at me like, "What are you talking about? What's passing?"
Why would you pass
Well, the concept of passing, this is passing a note now.
Yeah,
You text them.
Did you have? Do they do that? All right, Benny, you're single. Let me ask. I'm sorry, we're going to get off track for just
Yeah,
a
we
second.
are way
just,
off
Just
track.
a second, not way off.
I'm scared.
If like you wanted to find out if a girl liked you or something, would you have a friend or somebody, a mutual one, text her to see if she liked you? Because that's what they used to do. Like you pass a note, kind of deal.
Yes.
Does that happen digitally now or electronically?
Digitally, or like you send in like, I find a mutual friend and be like, hey, you should go talk to this person with these questions.
I need you to do me a solid.
Yeah, find out if she likes me.
Because I guess now you think you can find out more about somebody because you have Facebook and Instagram and all these things. But you know what? I've met people that post lots of scriptures and everything. And then I find out,
right.
They're a serial killer. I mean, maybe not that extreme, but you know what I mean?
That far,
it's called his fake book and Insta lie is what I call it.
Yeah,
no doubt. You're not.
So they do that then. So
yeah.
Because I know a lot of people meet actually on like Facebook dating and plenty of fish.
Yeah, there's all sorts of dating apps now, and that's commonplace.
Yeah.
Whatever. But anyway, I'm
Christian
sorry.
Mingle.
Christian Mingle.
I wonder how many are actual
Farmers only.
farmers only.
But that probably got really popular with Yellowstone. But
I can't. Oh, there's some even weirder ones than that, and I don't even want to get into it.
So Farmer Benny, tell me this.
No.
Anyway, go back to what you're saying. I just got curious about
No,
that.
I can't even remember what I was going to say. But no, I just, we just made sure that things were aligning.
Yeah.
And and sure enough, they were. Well, what do you think about divorce? Well, but the girl that I was going back to, the girl that I liked and thought about dating, she was of a completely different faith. It was like, I remember going home and telling my mom, I'm like, I really like this girl, but she's Mormon. And mom went, no, that needs to end now.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Like, wow. We're not going to agree. We're not, I mean, it's very different, and so my mom always told me, like, if she's probably not going to church, she's probably not somebody you want to date.
Yeah.
If she's not a believer.
Or if she just goes for you, well, I'll go because you.
Yeah.
I'll go for
Right.
you.
Right.
It was important to me that it was somebody that was like, man, I want to be there. And I remember the thing that really was drawing me to Ashley was, it wasn't just Sunday morning. There was, at that time, we had a Sunday night thing, and she would go Sunday night, and then they had this Monday night thing called Metro. It's kind of like what we're doing with Citywide with 18 to 24 year olds right now. Although I was a little older than 24 then. I still went because it was there. It was like up to 32 or something like that, And anyway, and I went. It's great Bible study. Tommy Nelson from Denton Bible Church taught it. He's got the Song of Solomon conference things that he used to do and everything. And I actually even did that when I was single before I met Ashley. I went to the Song of Solomon conference that Tommy put on because it wasn't like I went to try and meet somebody. I literally went because I felt like I needed to find out what a godly husband was because it had never been modeled for me. I led my dad to the Lord. So I never saw the godly influence and what that looked like, and woke up, you've heard my testimony. I grew up in a home that was, kind of wild, but, I didn't want that for me and the if God was going to bring children in, and so I could see she was pursuing Christ. She signed up for discipleship. She was moved during the worship. I could just see God doing a work in her, and it actually did not take very long before I went, this is actually, like, we were engaged within 2 months of dating, and then we did a 12-month premarital counseling and everything else since I was going into the ministry just to try and prepare ourselves as much as possible. And her being a school teacher, we met, we got engaged in June, and she wanted to get married in her home church in Louisiana, and she wanted to be able to plan it. So she wanted to wait till the next summer. And so that's what we prayed about and agreed. And so that's kind of what the process was for us. We knew pretty quick and
Cheryl and I were 3.5 months. I mean,
and you were married in 3.5 months?
No. Engaged in 3.5 months, because it was like all the things aligned. I mean, we had strong conversations like, hey, I told her, I said, look, hey, I'm going to be a coach. A coach's wife looks like this. And these are the things that a coach's wife is going to have to deal with. Like, are you going to be okay with that? Because that's still all part of the equally yoked. Are they okay with this sort of lifestyle that you're going to have and work hours, and you're going to raise kids a lot of times when I'm not there because I'm going to be coaching long hours and all those things, and this is what you signed up for. I think a lot of divorces could be avoided if you begin to have those conversations very early, and have honest conversations. And
don't pretend. I mean, this is the rest of your life you're talking about. And bringing kids in and all of those things. And so that's why we did a 12-month, because I was going into, I didn't know if I'd be a pastor. At that time, I just wanted to be a youth minister and a youth speaker and travel and just do youth. Right. And, then God began to put a desire to be a pastor later, but he had to put a desire for her to be a pastor's wife, because like you said, there's a lot of times I'm leaving at midnight to run to a hospital or I'm going and doing these things. And, when I was a youth minister, I mean, like, we got married in June, we went on our honeymoon. When we came back, I had 2 sets of luggage packed from DFW airport. One luggage was to head to camp, where I had about 400 middle school students waiting in Oklahoma at Camp Wow. And so she jumped in the car and we drove right after our honeymoon to Camp Wow, came back from Camp Wow, and I got on a van and took 15 students to a mission trip to Colorado. So she right off the bat got it, but she knew what it was. It wasn't like we got back and she's like, why are you always gone? We had this conversation. Right. And it was never that. She always knew that, going on and going in. And so, and this isn't just for people in the ministry or just for coaching, whatever line of business that might be, but also too, they need to know that that's not more important.
Right.
After Jesus, you are the most important thing to me. And you start, I think, establishing that right from the beginning, so that she has that understanding of, hey, I know that he's doing this in order for us to, or it's a calling, or it's what his passion is, and she goes along with it. But also, that doesn't mean she's giving 99% and you're giving 1%. I told you I'm going to be gone. You've got to make sure that you're
we'll dig into that. We'll dig into that a lot more when we talk about marriage, but.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to bring up that prompted the question in my mind of, like, what is the process for you guys, if you could outline, like, let's say, advice for people who are seeking to date?
Good.
How do they bring up those conversations, or how do they know that when it's the right time to bring up those conversations? Because as you both bring up, like, we established what our goals were. We established, this is what I'm going to be doing with my life. This is what I'm going to be working at. If you're in a relationship with me, this is what's going to happen. I wonder how many people are having those conversations, because I feel like a lot of people, when you get into, let's go back to how you said the recreational dating relationship. If you're just in that, it's like, I don't care what you do. Like, this is just a fling. I'm just here because I like having a girlfriend. I like, whatever.
Yeah.
I like to be in a relationship, but there's no purpose behind it.
Right.
And I think that's the difference, is when you recognize that the purpose of dating is to get to a godly marriage, to set up for a godly marriage. Dating is just evaluation to prepare yourself. You have those conversations. So, the question again to you guys is, how do you know when to move forward with having those deeper conversations, let's say?
Well, first of all, I think you have to see the things we've talked about. I think you have to see that in somebody, because then the conversations are pretty organic, in the way that they happen. Because if they are pursuing Christ, they're in the Word, they're in service, they're in church, and they're growing, and they're seeing those things, and you are as well. I think they often happen organically, because now you have so much in common, it just sort of starts to come out, and then pretty soon you're not just doing the casual thing. And I didn't do the casual thing after I became a believer. I did we all went out in groups and we kind of hung out, and you're sort of just seeing, wow, and that's what I saw in Ashley. I was like, wow, I'm seeing somebody that not only is pretty, but also I'm seeing somebody that is actively pursuing Jesus. And so when we went out on the first day, we already had those things in common. We were talking about, man, what did you think about what Dr. Graham said about the service? And we're like, talking about that. And then organically it moved in, especially because when God's moving and God's in this, those topics come up in the things that you see. And like I said, then I went to a Song of Solomon deal, and then there was an advertisement for it. And I go, oh yeah, I went to one of those. And it just began a natural progression of talking about those things.
I would agree with it. A lot of times that happens organically. I think number one, if you're young, in a young dating scene, high school, which I'm always very careful about recommending any sort of dating in high school. It should be very recreational, in a group. I think the conversation is, hey, we're just having fun. We need to protect ourselves from ourselves because we will, when left alone, that's not a good thing. So you be smart about that. I would say having those conversations happen organically. I think the biggest advice I would say is stop acting. If you're dating, don't act like you're married before you're married. Don't start putting expectations on that dating partner way too early, because there's still some process that you have to go through in your life. I see couples who are dating, and it's like they feel so smothered and controlled by this person, and they're dating. Yeah. This is not a marriage relationship yet. So
it's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Right.
And so oftentimes that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for the quick fix and stuff, you're not ready.
Yeah.
If you're like, well, I got to meet them now, then you're not ready, because now Christ isn't enough for you. If you need them, he's not enough for you. You need to get to a place where he is absolutely enough for you. Mm-hmm. And then you look at who he brings to you as the blessing. You don't need anybody to complete you. I know when, we've talked about that and God saw it wasn't good for man to be alone, but he didn't say, uh-oh, man's alone, mayday, mayday, kind of a deal. It was, it was a blessing to Adam to have Eve. It's a blessing when God brings that individual. And so, that's a great thing to bring up too, is just like, don't expect on the second date just because both of y'all had a great worship service together. I mean, there's still times when you got to get to other things. And it's like what we talked about. There's so many couples that spend months preparing for the wedding day and not 1 minute preparing for the wedding life. Yeah. And so that's why they end up in the pastor's office, and oftentimes,
I've always believed that you should temper your expectations for that other person. Make sure that you're not overly expecting them to act a certain way. They'll act the way they're supposed to act, and you will know pretty soon if this is somebody who's not equally yoked, that they're not going to be a good match for you, especially if they are trying to make themselves your match. Like if they're not being who they are, they're doing something to try to force the issue. Yeah.
And you can act for a while, but it'll come out eventually.
Right. So that's why you take it slow, because hey, there's no pressure in this relationship. There's no pressure in this relationship. Yeah. We're just getting to know each other, and as the more we get to know each other, the more more is going to be revealed, and more our desires to be together long term will begin to sort of come to the forefront. Mm-hmm. And so that would be my biggest advice. Don't rush it. There's no point in that. And I would say too,
get in the Word together. Yes. Talk about what that Scripture means to you, and pray together.
Yeah.
And pray for each other. Pray for each other when you're not around each other, but when you're on that date, pray for one another and listen to her pray for you as she listens to you. Pray for her and lead her through that. And so, man, it was a great time, man.
Yeah. Time flew by, didn't it?
It really did. It really did. It was a great time. Appreciate both of you guys always, and we always appreciate both of you guys that watch our show. Thank you so much. Ashley and Cheryl, thanks.
Yeah. Look forward to next week. We'll see you back soon.
God bless.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Mission City Podcast. We hope that you took something from this session. Next week, we're going to continue this relationship series talking about marriage. So go ahead and click here to subscribe so you don't miss the next session, and you can click here to watch last week's episode. See you guys next time.